studies indicate they are actually quite pervasive. And this holds true from the front line to the C-suite. In the next 30 minutes, we will explore the roots of this common challenge and teach you the strategies to better conquer self-doubt and improve your professional power and confidence to unlock your true potential. Welcome to Conquering Imposter Syndrome Strategies for Success. This Lunch and Learn is ideal for professionals at all levels seeking to boost their confidence and overcome feelings of inadequacy. This will be particularly beneficial for those grappling with imposter syndrome in their careers. Leading us today is Lucy Paulise. Lucy is a leadership coach and author with an MBA and ICF Professional Certified Coach certification. She specializes in empowering individuals to overcome imposter syndrome and lack of self-confidence. Lucy's experience spans from small businesses to Fortune 100 corporations. She has authored several books, including We Culture and 5S Your Life. Bilingual and based in Texas, Lucy is especially passionate about supporting those affected by chronic illnesses. One Village members, whether you are joining us live or on the replay, welcome. I'm One Village's Chief Wellness Officer, Dr. Leslie Waltke. Here at One Village, we are dedicated to helping you when you are not well. And when you are well, we are dedicated to helping you stay well. Again, welcome everyone. Please hang around to the end for a question and answer session with Lucy and to learn how you can connect with her one-on-one. Now let's dive into the heart of imposter syndrome. Lucy, the stage is yours.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Leslie, thank you very much for your introduction. Thanks everyone for attending this webinar. We're going to dive today into the topic of imposter syndrome, explore its typical signs and behaviors, and discuss how to recognize the triggers and discover strategies to overcome it. This subject is incredibly close to my heart, as it's very common in many conversations with many of my clients. And I can say also myself that I many times had imposter syndrome, so I'm glad to discuss any of the strategies with you. I noticed a gap in practical guidance on how to effectively manage imposter syndrome and turn it into a source of growth rather than self-doubt. So today I'm really excited to shed some light on this issue, help you navigate it, be honest about it. So if you have any questions at all, please write them in the chat and wait till the end of the session, and we'll cover them. So let's get started. Imposter syndrome is more common than we think. As Leslie was saying, this is very common in every type of role, in any industry, in any race, in any place of the planet. Unfortunately, Clance and Gail Matthews found out that about 70% of people experience imposter syndrome for at least some part of their careers, or even early on as students. And particularly now, I've seen as a coach, that remote workers tend to feel imposter syndrome even more often than before, as they lack probably their manager's feedback or the visibility required to validate their performance. So they really are eager to get this validation somehow. Let's move into more about what is imposter syndrome. Well, many of you probably have heard about the term, but you really don't know exactly what it means. So imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon where individuals doubt about their abilities, and I will go on this later on. It's not a diagnostic like ADHD. It's not a clinical diagnostic, but still there are many common behaviors that can be seen. People with imposter syndrome feel like frauds, that they are imposters in what they are doing, that they will be exposed as incompetent very soon if they make a single mistake, or their presentation is not perfect, or they don't consider that they are the best. They will be fired, or they will be seen as inadequate and as incompetent. This makes people experience continuous frustration, being very anxious all the time, during work, out of work, during your personal life, when you go to sleep, it's a constant anxiety, thinking that they're not good enough, that they should have done this in a different way. So that's more about kind of depression, thinking about the past in a negative way, or thinking about the future with anxiety, and always seeing kind of the negative aspect of it. As a result, they tend to overwork just to cover for that, engage in self-sabotage or over self-criticism, and can have frequent episodes of depression, like I said, anxiety, and overthinking. So try to think if this is something that you've seen that happened to you in the past. I'm trying to admit here everyone to the session. Try to think if this happened to you before, is this is something frequent, because of course some of these things can happen once in a while to us. It's, maybe we change jobs and you feel a little inadequate, like I don't know if I'm in the right place. That's normal. That's okay. It could be even an imposter syndrome situational, right? But when you have constant imposter syndrome, means that you feel like that no matter how much or how long you've been in that job. So let's move on to the next slide and see some of the signs of the imposter syndrome in detail. As I said, it's not a clinical diagnostic, but these are kind of the common behaviors that have been seen in people with imposter syndrome. So the first one is that they work too hard. You might find yourself taking on more tasks than necessary, pushing yourself to work long hours, and often neglecting self-care in the process. Also, despite of having certifications, or maybe you've done many courses, or you even received great feedback from your manager, you keep doubting and thinking that if you do something wrong, there's going to be repercussions. You're most of the times being a perfectionist, looking for every detail and setting very high, and I will say even unrealistic standards or unrealistic goals for yourselves. And sometimes you also do it for others too. You can see that maybe with micromanagers. So this is a very important presentation because, as I said, it's so common that this could be something that you are experiencing yourself, or you can see that others around you experiencing it. It could be that you as a leader see it in other people that are reporting to you, they're really good workers, but they are experiencing self-doubt. You can see it in your manager, being a micromanager. You can see it in your kids, your partners. So it's very important that, that you understand what this means and how you can help yourself, you can help them. It is also very common that when you have imposter syndrome, you are seeking, like I said before, for validation. So you are seeking for mentors, you are seeking for feedback. So if you as a leader have a direct report that seems to have imposter syndrome, probably it's good that you give them constant feedback, or that they will ask you for a lot of feedback. They want your validation. They really care about external validation. And when you give a negative feedback, they will take it. They will really overthink about it. If you give them positive feedback, also they will think, there's something wrong here. I cannot believe she's giving me positive feedback. So it's hard, right? It's a constant anxiety. So it's important to analyze how you can do that. You can provide this feedback. So later on, we're gonna share how you can contact me. But if you are a leader in a group, or you have some people with imposter syndrome, you can also contact me and we can talk about that and how to better manage that. The other very common behavior is that, as I said, you focus on validation from others. It's very common that you compare yourself to others. You're always thinking, okay, I'm less than them, or they are doing this great, I'm not so good at. Of course, no one is much better than others, like they're different. As a coach, we always tend to say that we all have different strengths. There's always something that you're really good at and some things that you're not so good at. we always recommend that you focus on what you're good at, right? And keep developing that. But with imposter syndrome, you tend to not see so much the good things that you have. You tend to focus on what you don't have. So then when you compare to others, you're always losing, right? But you're not seeing the other side of the coin. Any questions so far? Should I keep going with the, the signs? How are we doing, Leslie?
We are doing fantastic.
Wonderful. All right. So what else? Some more common signs is the fear to speak in public. You have a hard time speaking up, asking questions, or presenting in public. And I'm not saying speaking to 200 people in a very, very big audience, but we're talking about presentations. We're talking about meetings, like team meetings, like the people that you see every day. It's something that feels like an exposure, that whatever they say can be seen as dumb or they can be seen as incompetent if they don't know how to answer to a question. So this is something that's very common, and we're gonna see why very shortly. Also, depending on your type of imposter syndrome, when in extreme or very stressful circumstances, you can get really anxious that your performance in the end suffers. So you probably have noticed that there are some people that under extreme circumstances, they tend to perform better. They get in the flow state and they perform super well. I don't know, we've seen like people like Simone Biles, they go to these competitions, and in the worst time under high pressure, they can't perform. Well, some people, if you have imposter syndrome, you may even like worry so much about what's going on about this presentation that no matter how much you practice, then you're feeling under threat, you're afraid, you're in fear. So you don't have all the right tools to perform right at that time. Not because you are not competent, but you're so stressed about it and overthinking that that you cannot breathe correctly, you cannot think clearly, and it's hard for you to perform the way you like. Especially because you are also very critic of yourself. You criticize yourself so much, and you focus on the negative things. So if you make a small mistake, you can really get blurred for the whole presentation. Another thing that I always discuss with my coaches is the fact that you see the world in terms of extremes. You're even maybe the worst or the best. You did everything right in a presentation, or you did everything wrong. There are no gray areas, right? So this is very harmful for you because you cannot see what's in between. Maybe this presentation was great, but you could have done this. Okay, learn from that and get better and let it go. But you keep obsessing with all the things that were wrong. And well, for instance, I remember when I was a child, when I was going to school, like maybe if there was one answer that I think I didn't answer correctly. I was hearing what other people were saying, like they replied, they answered. And I was thinking, oh, they really answered that, so my answer is wrong. Obsessing about it, crying, like feeling so bad, not being able to sleep. The next day, I get the grade, and the grade was fantastic. It was 10. I'm from Argentina. We were numbering from 1 to 10. It was a 10, right? It was the best. So the answer wasn't so bad. Was okay. It was not wonderful, but it was meeting the standards, and the other ones were wrong. Right? But you tend to think that you are the one that is doing wrong and that you want something, even better. So I always say also to my coaches, like, hey, maybe, it's not about being mediocre and not looking for high standards, but sometimes, your good enough standards are as okay as the 100% of the other people. So it's not about really, reducing your standards, but admitting or trying to look for standards that are realistic. And the last one that I'd like to say is that you tend to be a people pleaser, as you are very focused on what other people think. You don't want them to feel bad. You already know how it is to feel bad about someone, or that someone doesn't treat you well. So you tend to be very good with others. You tend to be a good partner, a good friend, and of course, like a good manager. But you tend to be more like a people pleaser, so that's something to check. So there's a lot of things. Maybe some of these you check the mark, and yes, you are doing some of this, maybe to different extents. Some of these you may not be doing. That's okay. If someone is interested in doing a test to see if you have imposter syndrome or what level of imposter syndrome, you can shoot me an email. I left the email there, and you can see it also at the end of the presentation, and I can send you a link to do that test. But this is, again, just informative so that you pay attention and you see, what could be the signs of you or someone having imposter syndrome. This is just an example of a client and how you can see these things. So maybe you don't see exactly what I mentioned in the signs, but you can see some of this. Like, for instance, when I asked this person, what are your strengths? They couldn't tell me about their strengths. I asked him, okay, like you're in a very important role. Like, why did they choose you, right, for this role? Why are you reporting directly to the CFO? And well, they tend to think not because they are amazing at some skills, but they tend to say, well, it's because I overworked for 2 years, so I deserved the promotion or something like that. Then when I ask about the feedback that they receive from what's the feedback that you receive from your manager, what do they think of you? Yeah, they say good things, but they tend to downplay that. Oh yeah, it's good, but I don't think that's true. Or maybe they want it to be nice with me because it's the first conversation or something like that, right? They always downplay the great things that other people tell them. So why is it that you have imposter syndrome if you do? So there are many reasons why. To be honest, current work cultures are reinforcing perfectionism and overworking, especially now that many workers are remote. They lack the feedback from the managers, like I said before, and this reinforce this vicious cycle. So basically, if you think about this cycle, you worry about your skills, then you keep working hard and you try to cover it up. So you make sure that you don't make a mistake. So you review the presentations 1,000 times. Then you get good grades or you have a great performance review, but you still don't believe. But what if they want to fire me next time? Or why is they doing that? Because they don't want to give me a promotion. I don't know. You start coming up with different reasons why you don't deserve what the good things they are saying. If they say something wrong, you focus on that wrong thing that they said. So you keep worrying about your skills, and that's what makes you stay in this vicious cycle that doesn't help you grow. And there are, so again, the current work cultures kind of perpetuate this vicious cycle, but there are also other reasons. There are, for instance, cultural expectations. I'm Hispanic, and I've seen that many Hispanic families, for instance, they strongly emphasize humility, modesty, or teamwork, and this can clash with the self-promotion often required in professional settings in corporate America. So this could lead maybe to feelings of inadequacy, or not feeling that you are a good fit for the company or for the group. There's also the stereotype threats or underrepresentation. For instance, as a woman, I've seen that a lot when you are the only woman in a leadership position, or maybe, and I worked for many years in STEM, and as a quality engineer, I was working with a lot of men, and maybe I was the only woman. So you tend to think like they feel like you're less competent, right? So you go to that company with that thought in mind, which makes, emphasizes imposter syndrome, that you shouldn't be there. The same happens with Black people, with men in places where a lot of women, with people that don't like sports in in sectors that there are a lot of sports related conversations, things like that. Mhm. And the other thing that I see a lot is family dynamics. I can see that most of the clients have had families maybe where their parents got divorced, so that makes them feel like they're not, they're not good kids, and they're trying to, be the best at what they are doing, so that the families go back together. So, it's what you think as a kid, right? Not that you do that consciously, but that's how you feel. So you try to force yourself to be the best at what you're doing. Or maybe you have parents that are self-absorbed or narcissistic or abusive or very critical. So that can increase a lot your tendencies to have imposter syndrome. Mhm. So kind of to wrap up of what's the impact of imposter syndrome and how you can see it. The impact at work is huge. To be honest, on one side, the people with imposter syndrome, they are amazing workers. They are really high achievers. They probably, some of the, or most of the greatest minds in our world have imposter syndrome. They work really hard. They looked at the details. They're very sensitive to their reports, like I said before. But there's also a lot of suffering within. Maybe you cannot see that, but they are suffering. They are really anxious. They may to procrastinate in some projects when they are very complex. They are very reluctant to promotion. Sometimes they want to stay in a safe place. They are afraid to go and explore new things. So they may think, oh, I'm not so good for this leadership role. So they may not, go to new roles or try to apply to these new roles. They have trouble envisioning a long-term career. It's very hard for them to see that. They have lower levels of job and career satisfaction. I've seen in many cases that they tend to change often companies because they don't feel comfortable. And instead of trying to overcome the imposter syndrome, they feel like, it's their fault, or they need a new leader. Like I said, they need a lot of support from the leader. And if the leader is, is not someone that facilitates the conversation, or is very aggressive, maybe it's not a good combination. And if they have trouble looking for promotions or valuing their or understanding their worth, of course, it's easier for them maybe to move to another company. So, any questions so far? We're gonna start seeing some techniques on how to overcome imposter syndrome. Well, like I said, imposter syndrome is not a genetic trait. It's not something that cannot be changed. Is not a diagnostic classification. So that means that it's a group of behaviors that, if you understand where you come from, or if you understand maybe it's a situation that you're going through right now, you can look for different ways to acknowledge what you're going through and try to overcome it or get help to overcome it. So these are basically the steps that we're going to see today. So the first one, do we have any questions, or should I move on, Leslie?
Yep, move on. We'll take questions in just a moment.
Okay. So first of all, recognize your imposter syndrome. Like I said, these anxious behaviors, understand that it's normal based on your past experience or trauma. Catch yourself overthinking or over criticizing. To take very deep breaths for a couple of minutes when you feel like you're like this, like feeling anxious about what's going on, or what you said, or what's going to happen. Try to identify any family dynamics like that I mentioned that could be connected to that, and see, if this could be the cause. And identify the triggers, the new situations or things that are really making you feel unworthy, or making you feel, really anxious. Then shed light on your self-talk. Try to notice. Once you notice your triggers, you can understand, why you're saying all these things to you. Try to turn it down. Remember that you have a self-talk that can be negative, that you can also turn it positive. Like if you were your best friend, what would you tell them? Okay, try to tell that to yourself. Try to challenge your automatic negative thoughts. Try to challenge what you're saying. If you're saying something, oh, I'm going to be dumb, or I'm not going to be good in this presentation, try to, look for the rationale in what you're saying and see if you can challenge that. Also, it's very important that you embrace yourself, that you recognize your strengths and your achievements. I always tell everyone, please take, when you go to sleep, take a couple of minutes to try to think about what did you do great that day in the job or at home or anywhere. Try to think about good things that you did, especially when you're not feeling like you feel like you made a mistake. Try to focus on the positive. Try to look at mistakes and on problems as the opportunities for growth and not reasons for, to treat you bad or to feel like you are inadequate or you don't have skills. You can learn more skills. You can always keep learning. Celebrate all their achievements, no matter how small. You don't need to, get a Nobel Prize to be happy for you. It's also very important that you seek support, seek guidance from a mentor or from a coach. You can reach out to me or some other coaches in One Village, or maybe a friend or a mentor at work, someone that can be an objective observer and can help you be your accountability partner and try to achieve work-life balance and really challenge your thoughts and see what's real and what's, an extreme or what's really going in your mind. And last but not least, overcoming imposter syndrome is a daily practice. It's like a muscle. You go to the gym to train, try to do the same. This is something you have to always think about whenever you catch yourself overthinking, criticizing yourself. Try to say, okay, what is real about this? What maybe I'm exaggerating? Maybe what is true? What is not true? What is good enough in this case? What do I really need to do? Do I really to get this grade here? Can I get something lower and it's still okay? Is this realistic? Are these timelines something that that are okay, or can I adjust it so I can take care of myself? So try to take some time during the day to go for lunch, to exercise. Exercise is very good for people with imposter syndrome to relax, to help them see a different perspective. So try to balance all your activities so that it's not only about work. So these were the strategies. This is just a summary for you to remember. You can take a picture of this, or try to follow these whenever you are feeling like there's something that you're not feeling well, or you're not feeling happy with yourself. And then again, reach out to a coach or someone that can support you to discuss and see what's really, what are the steps that you can take to improve. Wonderful. So
Lucy, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And I loved how you used Simone Biles as an example, because she's literally the GOAT, the greatest of all time, one of the most brilliant gymnasts in the history of humanity. And she has talked about having imposter syndrome. So, it's pervasive in so many levels. I think it's just a human trait that we all have to deal with. So if would love to take questions from the group, and please use that QR code on your screen now to make an appointment directly with Lucy. And so while people are doing that, Lucy, so if I am suffering from imposter syndrome, or I feel like, some of these things kind of sound like me, what is one simple step I can take on Monday morning to help myself move in a better direction?
Yeah. So the one thing I would say is, like I mentioned, try to take a deep breath, and I'm gonna explain why. Um, Out of all your organs, like many organs that are autonomous, right? That you cannot manage. You cannot manage your heart, right?
Right.
Or your sweat, right? You're sweating. You're especially going to a presentation. You get so nervous. How can you manage that? The best way, the easiest way to do it is by breathing. You're telling, by breathing, you can control your lungs, how they work. They can make it, work slower. And you're telling your brain that it's okay. So basically what the brain is thinking when you start with these imposter syndrome triggers is that you are under threat, right? It's like maybe if you suffer as a kid with an abusive parent, you're feeling like that's the situation again, right? It's just a presentation at work. It's not so bad, right?
Right.
But that's internally what you think. So by breathing, you calm yourself and you are better able to think clearly, think what's really there, what's possible,
Yeah.
think of alternatives and see the reality, right? Closer to what it is.
I think it'd be really important too for people as a first step is to figure out, okay, what is the basis of these feelings? Like, is it my family? Was it the way I was raised? Was it, I had an abusive boss 5 years ago and I just haven't let that go yet, even though that person's gone? Or is it because I work with other really smart people and I don't want to feel like I'm dumber than everybody else? So I think really assessing where your feelings come from and how they impact you is a really good first step. And also figuring, okay, where do I go from here to make this less impactful on who I am and how I perform?
Exactly. Yes, Leslie, I totally agree. That's your first step. Think about it. Try to take your time to dig into that. Again, this is something we're not saying that your parents are bad people, that
Right.
there's nothing wrong with your family. It's just family dynamics. Sometimes some things don't work. Sometimes you are affected by that in a different way. You can see siblings from the same families having different experiences. Some have imposter syndrome, some are narcissistic, some have nothing, and they're okay
Mhm.
with their lives and at work. Maybe they have that trigger later on in their lives. It could be something again like you can experience in sports, at work, in your personal life. Be anywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's
All right.
normal. It's okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Lucy, so much for sharing your wisdom and brain with us and your direction. We really appreciate it. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us for this Lunch and Learn. Again, reach out to Lucy if you have any further questions, and you can reach her at lucy@onevillage.io. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.